Joining us now to discuss further is CoinDesk Director of Professional Content, Galen Moore in Boston. Welcome, Galen. Always a pleasure. So, is the worst for Bitcoin over or not?
You know, I think there's a lot to look at that is that's pretty optimistic and positive in today's headlines, Christine. I mean, you were just talking about the Google Arnold Goldberg hire, right? I mean, look, this is super important. I mean, we look at this and it's a headline about Google and crypto, great. But to the rest of the world, this is a headline about Google changing its payment strategy, right? This is a huge area for Google today and a huge potential area for Google in the future. It's a huge strategic announcement for Google. And in the same breath, they're talking about crypto. So look, I mean, I think for those of us who've been around a little while in crypto, we look back to past bear markets. 2018 to 2019 was the crypto winter and a season for crypto investors to build. The BIDL meme at that time was strong, and the building that happened led to the DeFi summer, right? Uniswap was built during that time, for example. So look, if this is another crypto winter, Christine, and I think, the jury is still out on that, who's building this time around? Add to the billions pouring into crypto venture capital, you've got tech giants investing and building, and ask yourself what could come out of that at the other end.
Okay, fair enough. But if we look at the GBTC discount, that has hit a new low, and GBTC is often used as a gauge for institutional players that want Bitcoin exposure. So what does this say about our institutional investors laying off BTC or are just not interested in funds because there are other ways to get Bitcoin exposure, such as Bitcoin futures ETFs, spot ETFs in Canada and such?
Strong liquid spot markets. I think actually the GBTC discount really actually comes back to that question of how long, if there is going to be a crypto winter, how long? What's your time frame for investment in crypto? I think first of all, I think looking at it as a gauge of institutional interest or participation is a little bit misguided. Certainly, there are institutions that buy GBTC, but there are also retail investors, people who want exposure to Bitcoin via a tax-advantaged investment account, for example. They want to smash that buy button on their Schwab account. So it's not necessarily this measure of institutional demand. Still, I think you can take it as a fairly sensitive gauge for the likelihood of a U.S. spot ETF approval. Grayscale has made public their intention to convert GBTC into an ETF. When that happens, presumably the discount will collapse. So the GBTC discount implicitly represents a discount to net present value, taking into account the time the market believes it will take for a spot ETF to be approved. That's the 2% annual fee over that time. That is if you believe in efficient markets. I'm not super confident in my back of envelope math here, but I think if you believe the SEC will approve a spot Bitcoin ETF within the next decade, then at these discount numbers, which are, by the way, like near 27% today, after the market closed yesterday at 26.5%, GBTC is a pretty good investment.
So wait, you think chances are low for a spot ETF approval anytime soon? That's what I thought the analysts were suggesting.
I think at a 27% discount, the market is saying chances are low. If the market thought that a spot Bitcoin ETF would be approved next year, and presumably GBTC would convert into an ETF, and that discount would collapse, you would see money flooding into GBTC, and that discount would collapse. Right today, we would be much narrower today. That's not happening. So I think really what we're seeing here is Mr. Market is saying that the timeline for a Bitcoin spot ETF approval is longer than the market's timeline for a Bitcoin investment. Now, if you're a 10-year Bitcoin diamond hands hodler, I would say GBTC looks pretty good. But if you're thinking about Bitcoin as maybe an investment on a 1 or 2 year time horizon, maybe there are alternatives to GBTC that are certainly more attractive.
All right. Pivoting toward another story, Microsoft announced the other day that it's acquiring game publisher Activision Blizzard for about $69 billion. Activision is behind mega franchises like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and the acquisition is being widely seen as a big bet to keep Microsoft competitive in the nascent metaverse space. But Galen, you also think this is good for Bitcoin. Tell me why.
I do. Yeah, totally, Christine. So, look, Bitcoin and growth stocks have been moving in tandem recently. And, I always point out, like a broken record, that the correlation is far from strong. That's the market regime today. And look, I think, on another day when the NASDAQ is headed toward the red, we see the second largest company on the NASDAQ, Microsoft, continuing to make strong investments and bets. And I think, like, basically, if you thought the NASDAQ was a good investment last year, it's these companies are still the sort of the situation hasn't changed. The fundamentals of investing in technology haven't changed. And so, to my view, if you think about the Bitcoin and growth stocks being correlated, again, we're looking at a time here where we're in a downturn. There's some uncertainty in the market. There's a lot of risk in the world. But the internet technology has a long way to go. Microsoft has a long way to go. They're continuing to invest in the same playbook that brought them up to the number 2 position on the NASDAQ. I think it's obviously an opportunistic investment on their part with a company that was having some major troubles and issues in the press, and culturally, internally, right? You've got to look at that as a vote of confidence. And at the same time, with Bitcoin correlated, and also with, like, the primary narrative driving crypto investment these days, not necessarily being Bitcoin, but being Web3, you've got to look at that as, like, a positive signal. This is still an area where strong fundamentals are happening, where investment is occurring. And, if you're thinking long term, maybe this is a good time to be building that position.
It's fascinating to see Web2 incumbents positioning themselves and preparing for Web3. So yes, it's very bullish for Bitcoin.